And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience, coming to you live from Los Angeles, California, every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, broadcasting on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a performing artist, and I'm a 27-year talk radio host here in Southern California. This show is about spirituality. It's about creativity. It's about humanity. It's about passion. It's about service. It's about becoming your best you in this big, beautiful world and inspiring others to do the same. And it may be my show every week, my friends, but it is always, without a doubt, your experience. My guest today is a wonderfully talented actress, comic, musician, writer. She's amazing. And I think one of the greatest minds of our time, one of the funniest people to have graced the earth, one of the best of our generation, and an honor to have her here on the show today. Please welcome to the show, the wonderful Margaret Cho is here. How are you, my friend? It's good to have you here.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here. I'm so glad to see you.
So glad that we've done this so many times, but never face to face, right? So it's glad to have a face to a face sometimes.
That's great.
So how does it feel to be back out on tour? I know you're in the middle of a tour right now. You're on tour now. Do you find that people are more receptive emotionally because it's so nice to be out and be out amongst people again after quarantine?
Yes, and there's so much to talk about, especially today with the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I think we need to come together and really express our rage and frustration, but also look for hope in the situation. And I think that's really what comedy does, is it helps you find hope in what feels like a hopeless situation. And so, I mean, I'm looking at it as kind of a way to vent, but also connect. And everybody's so excited to be going out. You know, we're so grateful to be able to actually be together and not taking any of that for granted. A live performance had gone away for a long time because of COVID. And now that we're back, it's like this rejuvenated kind of expression of like joy to be together. And so I love that. Yeah, I do too. I think that connection is something that humans need. I think that is why everyone is so into their phones and Facebook and the internet. Yes, we like to share our story and we like people to give us likes and tell us we're wonderful. But I think even more than that, there is a definite need to connect. And the thing I think is wonderful about social media is people who live in smaller, more remote areas of the world that maybe don't see a lot of faces like them for whatever reason in their community now can reach out all over the world and make friends and find kindred souls. Because I think that connection, right, is what really gets us through the times in our life that are not so joyful and reminds us that we're not alone. Right. And it's a really great asset for queer people, for anybody who feels like they're struggling, if they feel like really isolated in their environment, in their community, they can reach out, and it really connects us in a way that feels really immediate, and it's important.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because when you're talking about queer people, it made me think about something I thought about you earlier today, that you and I are somewhere around the same age. And when we were coming up as artists, people were constantly telling us, you know, don't talk about politics, don't talk about your spiritual beliefs, nobody cares what you think. You from the get-go, and you started doing stand-up at a super young age, right? You from the get-go were always very open to talk about your politics and your ethnic background and your sexuality and just kind of not care what other people said or thought we were supposed to do publicly. And I think it's because of people like you that younger generations now have come up feeling very open to talk about the things they believe and not fearful that, oh, if I say this thing or that thing, I'm going to lose my agent, or I'm never going to work again.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think it's partially because, like I can't escape identity when I'm talking about like stand up, like comedy, like you can't escape what I look like and the different impression I make compared to everybody else who's doing comedy when I was coming up. So it's very much like identity is currency in stand-up comedy and in art in general. And so I think also politics are so interesting. And I started off as an AIDS activist. I started off as a comedy person who was doing AIDS fundraising and working for people with HIV and AIDS and looking to find funding, find support, and find hope for our communities. And so this is something that I'm really used to.
Yeah, and so good at it. And like I said, to be so aware and so awake at such an early age, and just not have that fear that you would never be invited back if you spoke your mind. I think that that in addition to your talent has made you so groundbreaking, because I think we're now realizing, and I think the younger generations get this, that it's not just about what you bring to the world with your art. I mean, that's extremely important, but it's also about what kind of platform does that amount of success give to you to be able to be a voice, to strengthen the idea of one human family, to make the world a better place, to bring people together, like you said earlier, to replace, anger and hate with joy and peace and love, and to just do it through being honest about how you feel. And I think there are still folks out there that I have interviewed that are, a little younger than us, and folks that are a lot older than us that are still terrified to say what they think, that are, terrified if I bring up a political question or a spiritual question, because they're so worried. They live in that old school, like Hollywood's going to come ride you out on a rail if you talk about something personal. But I think now people want to identify with you. They want to know who you are. They want to know what's going on in your heart and your soul and your mind, right?
Right. Well, the personal is political, and it's really important to express yourself. And I think that, like, my favorite artists always do that. And my favorite comedy is always that. So I think it's really about sharing that part of yourself that makes you different.
Yeah, I agree. Is it difficult to talk about COVID and the quarantine? Do you have to be very careful when you do that? Because so many people have died. So many people have lost loved ones, as we all have. But I find that sometimes when I'm doing my interfaith sermons and I'm talking a lot about the spiritual lessons in the pandemic, in the quarantine, because I try to always look at what's the good that came from the bad. Sometimes I get a little bit of pushback because folks don't want to hear about the good. They just want to take some time and process how sad they are. I would imagine being on a comedy stage and trying to talk about a global pandemic is difficult for those same reasons. Is that right?
Well, it's really about what it is that you want to focus on. And I think that it's like, for me, it's really the gratitude that we have such resilience as, people, that we can come through this and be able to look to all the things we used to take for granted in our lives, whether it's something like eating out. Like, to me, I love to eat in a restaurant. I really love it. And that's something that was such a daily thing that I completely took for granted.
Yeah.
And the fact that we could not have that was really painful. Like, it was really hard. And so just the gratitude of being able to be together, to hang out, and to be able to be in a club and see live entertainment was really something that I was really amazed that I totally forgot how much joy it gave me. And I think everybody did forget. Everybody really took those things for granted. And now we have such an appreciation for it again. So there's a lot to be thankful for. And I think when you focus on that part of it, it's really something that everyone can appreciate.
Yes. And I think if you're ever going to talk about something good that came from something bad, and something always does, right? If the earth is scorched, flowers will grow up there eventually. There's always a good that comes spiritually from something that is horrifying. It's that maybe we now, for the first time, in our lifetime, but maybe for the long time, maybe since the last pandemic, people are really seeing that here's a thing that can happen to us in Los Angeles. It can happen to someone in Africa. It can happen to someone in Chile. It can happen anywhere to anyone, and it treats everyone the same. So isn't that interesting how alike we are? And maybe it's made people think a little bit more about not being us and them, but just being we. And that's always kind of been my hope for the world. And I hope that is something that we take out of this.
Well, it just shows us how much we're connected, how we think that we're really all so much like an individual and we're just like what we do doesn't have an effect on anybody else, but actually what we do has an effect on everybody else. And we're so connected that we can't deny it anymore. And I think that's a really important lesson that was learned, and that we all are affected in the same way by certain things. And so that's really, it showed me also how small the world is, which I think is actually really encouraging and enlightening in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of hope to be had as well.
Absolutely. I always like to talk on this show about service. It's kind of a thing that's very important to me from a spiritual perspective and also from a socio-political perspective. You know, your earthbound service and your spiritual service. Clearly, as an artist, your art is your service. You are bringing that to the world. But for you, Margaret, is your work, when you're not on camera, when you're not on stage, when you're not in a recording studio, just by being a voice, is that service just as important to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of just service that we get to do in our like personal communities and our spiritual communities, like basically like political communities. In my own like little ecosphere in my home, like I am in service to many animals, to many cats, to a little dog, to 28 bird feeders. That the birds in my and that fly over and migrate over my area all the way to, you know, wherever they're going, all the way to the other side of the planet. They always stop at my house, and so I have to make sure I'm stocked up for their long journey. And it's incredible. The same birds come all the time, and now they're not afraid of me anymore. And so I'm really in service to the plants, the native plants in my region, my gardens, my carnivorous bogs, my all of the
awesome
plants. It's a lot. It's good.
Yeah. Well, it's that connection, right? It's being part of the everything, which I think ultimately makes us as an individual more happy and fulfilled when we're part of the everything. I have a duck in my pool. He comes whenever he wants. I think he thinks he's found a pond no one knows about. My only concern is him and the chlorine, but I can't really do anything about it. So now I have a new kitten whose head you saw pop up on the screen. Now in the morning when we're sleeping together, and then all of a sudden he hears the want, and here he goes, and he dives in head first into the pool, and he pops up and he just swims around until he's bored, and then he leaves. Well, the kitten has never seen anything like this before. His mind is blown. The duck is bigger than him. And it's like his morning thing now. It's like sunrise with the duck. So my neighbor contacts me and she's like, "Oh my God, there's a duck in our pool. What are we going to do about it?" And I'm like, I love him. Is that wrong? I don't care if he poops in the pool. That's what the pool cleaner is for. And I let dogs swim. My best friend's dog swims in my pool. Like, I think the pool is there for people to enjoy it. And in mating season, he brings his wife and the ducklings. And I think it's the most amazing thing ever. But that's part of the oneness, right? I have the pool. I will share the pool with the duck. I think if we thought more about, we all have something, right? And we all need something. So we bring what we have, and then hopefully we get what we need. And that's sort of the circle of life that makes everything okay for the most part, I think.
It is. And it's really, you know, to me, it's really important because it's all very cyclical, like to keep it all going, and, you know, to make sure to sort of keep all of these like circles of life, to keep them circling and keep them moving. And I love it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. When you started speaking openly about how you believed, things that you believed politically and culturally and sociologically, was it easy for you? Was it easy for you to be open about your own personal experiences? Because you, like me, kind of live out loud, right? There are very little things about you people think. There's probably a lot of things about you people don't know. Like there's a lot of people don't know things about me, but they think they know everything because I'm very open about a lot of stuff because I hope somebody can identify and learn from something that's happened to me. And you're very much that same way. Was it easy for you or was that difficult?
I think it was easy. I think it's like for me, because stand-up comedy is really the art form where it's unregulated. So you really are bound only by the lack of imagination. Like you're only bound by your own lack of freedom of expression. So I think there you're able to say whatever you want, and that was really good. Where it was harder for me was being an actor, going out and like trying to audition for roles that didn't exist, that they didn't have roles for Asian Americans in the
Right.
80s and 90s, really. And so it was very, very challenging. I didn't have the success as an actor as I wanted, but now that's kind of more coming to my life now, which is really
Yeah.
incredible and really, really exciting. But, for me, like the limitations came when it was about like being in television and in movies and things that I wanted to do in that realm. But in stand-up comedy, it was always really free.
I always think about that when I see an Asian performer in something. I always think about you and how
Oh,
you
that's,
sort of kick that door down, right?
yeah,
And now,
yeah.
and because that was sort of one of the last ethnic groups of folks to really get roles.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
now there's so many, and it's such a beautiful thing to
Yes.
see. And I think about that. Growing up a bigger girl, a heavy girl, when I was in, I always tell this story. My theater teacher and I were very, very close. But I always had to play the old lady or the crazy bag lady, or it was very frustrating to me when I was a teenager and I wanted, the leads in the musicals. And when I was 18, I was walking into the graduation procession and he stopped me and he said, I know you're mad at me, but I did you a favor. You're probably not going to work until you're 40, and I want you to know it's going to be okay. So at the time, that was like devastating. It was like actor cancer he had given me. The
Mm-hmm.
sad thing was he was kind of right, which is why I created my own stuff and got into radio. So every time I see a show with a heavy girl, and every show has a big girl in it now, I think the same thing, that isn't it nice that actresses coming up don't have to worry that they're not going to work until they can play the crazy bag lady or the crazy old lady, because now they're mixed in like with everybody else, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we need, and that diversity we need different kinds of people to
Yeah.
portray what exists in these stories that exist in real life. To
Yeah.
bring them alive, we need the real deal of who the stories are about. And so I think that's really, really exciting. And there's still needs to be more. There still needs to be more diversity.
Yes.
There needs
Yeah.
to be more of a range of voices that we're hearing from, a range of stories. But it's very encouraging what we've seen so far.
And encouraging how many women we see as leads and things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so many women. It used to be everything had 20 guys in it and one woman, and usually she was playing the porn star. Now it's women playing all different kinds of things, and I think that's
Hmm.
great. I talk about this all the time, and I'm not trying to get political, but here I go a little bit. Um, we're the largest percentage of humans on the earth.
Hmm.
If we all stuck together, there would be no patriarchy,
Right.
because we could change the rules and we could vote out what we didn't like. But
Hmm.
I think we, unfortunately, like a lot of oppressed communities, a lot of marginalized communities, we sort of sometimes aren't that great to each other. And it's
Right.
nice to see that that is changing. It's nice to see
Right.
women not throwing each other under the bus. And it's nice to see that beginning to change, because it's so important we all stick together,
Hmm.
and then align with other communities, the queer community, and people of minority ethnicities, and people of different spiritual beliefs and different gender differences, and kind of just take this all over and make it equal for everyone.
Right. I think we're understanding our power a lot better and understanding those dynamics of the patriarchy and of white supremacy that keep us confined. We're seeing that like this is actually not us pitted against each other, but what the patriarchy has done to pit us against each other, what white supremacy has done to pit us against each other. It's not our own biases against each other, and so that's really
Right.
powerful.
Yeah, it's very important. As an actor, we were talking about you going out for roles as an actor because as a comic and when you do albums, you have to create so much of your own content and you do have to sort of tell your story often on stage, right? It's your story. Is it
Hmm.
nice sometimes to just disappear into a character and
It's
not
fun.
have to have it be your story? You just get a break, you get to be somebody else?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's really fun. I mean, I think it's really special. I think acting is its own really special art form. You do
Yeah.
have to bring somebody else to life, which I think
Yeah.
is really exciting and really it's a magical profession. And I'm really thrilled to be able to do more and more of it.
And you're on so many shows right now. It's like the break you had to take from touring sort of got filled up with projects that were still going, right? Television projects that were still happening.
Yeah, that's what was
That,
really lucky about being able to work during the pandemic is that television and film production was really fast to pick up on how to do things safely during COVID and how to keep production going. And so there, I was not on the road, so it was available to do a lot of different things, which was really, really lucky.
and was it strange? Because I've interviewed other folks that have been on sets during this. Uh, Being on a set, whether it's television or a film, right? That's usually the biggest connection place of all. Everyone's in your face and you're in everyone's face and there's food everywhere and everyone's touching it. And it's like a party with friends for 200 people. Was it
Mm.
strange to suddenly have that all different with masks and not craft service and everything very separated and being in your dressing room a lot because they didn't want you out amongst other people, not socially distancing? It was a much different experience, right?
It's different, but it's also, productions have done such a great job in keeping on top of everything. They've added COVID safety as another department on all productions. So it's really just another aspect to what you're doing. And actually, you're safer within production in a COVID safe environment than you are just out in the world. And it's
Yes,
really
in your home.
incredible.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible how well they take care of you and how assured you are. I mean, it's like they really just take care that for the production is not going to get shut down, and there's so much more demanding of safety precautions than
Sure.
you would experience even like traveling internationally. There's so many things going on, so I'm really grateful to all the productions and all of the COVID precautions that they've been taking.
It's so wonderful. Yeah, I've heard that. It's really, I mean, I had a friend that worked on something right in 2020, right when everybody went back. And that was a major production thing for a network. And she said it was strange because suddenly, you do your thing and then they'd put you right back in your trailer and then they'd ask you what you wanted for lunch and it would come in this like plastic wrapped environment. And it was just a very different experience than getting 50 hugs on a set, which is oftentimes what it is, right?
Hmm. And yet you still feel very linked to the people that you need to be linked with, whether that's the other
That's
actors,
nice.
whether that's the director, whether that's your hair and makeup people, whether that's
Sure.
wardrobe. You very much like connect with the departments that you need to in the way that you need to, and so the things that you need to do are really taken care of in a very good way. And the things that are minimized are I get my own candy. Like I bring my candy. Like I have
Oh,
to
okay.
create my
That's
own
it.
craft service. I have like my
Okay.
own
All
like
right.
high chew. I have my craft service here. I have my
Oh,
high
nice.
chew and candy. I have all the candy
Good.
all the time.
Good. Okay. Yeah, it's a BYOC studio project now.
Yes,
Everybody brings their own
absolutely.
candy.
Hmm.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about acting because I always say that growing up as an actor, that the most one of my the most fabulous things about acting is that when you literally put yourself in someone else's shoes and you're taking on their personality and their energy for however long that you're on the set, it changes you, right? Even when it's over, you live with this person inside of you. And every time you play somebody, it changes you a little bit for the experience, right? So is there,
Yeah,
I mean, right? Is that how
yeah.
you feel?
I like to do like things like little things like I have I have a big, like, I'm a big fragrance collector, and so I have a big fragrance library in my home. And every acting job that I get, I'll wear like a particular fragrance for that character. So for Fire Island, that character wears Ben John Bohem by Diptyque. And like I get this sort of like idea, oh, okay, this is what this role is, and this is what this character would wear. I'm not really a method actor, but fragrance is the one thing that I think, oh, what kind of perfume? Sometimes the character doesn't wear perfume, so that's really fun.
So how many fragrances, only because I'm a fragrance junkie, how many
Yes.
fragrances do you have? And when do you have the time to sample them to decide that that's the one you want? Because I find that sometimes it was like trying to choose a movie at Blockbuster. If I'm
It's
in
hard.
Macy's and I start smelling things and I go crazy because then I start liking everything, and after a while my nose can't tell it apart, and it's a lot. It's a project.
I'm a discovery set kind of person. So I really do like to, if I like a perfume house, I get a discovery set. And usually you can get those like online, and then you can try the perfumes over time. And then like I usually will go, like I love a duty-free moment and going and smelling all the blotters, or in a department store
Nice,
smelling all the blotters,
nice.
which is
Yes, I
something that
do too.
we couldn't do that during COVID. So it's a bit hard going back. Actually, they don't have like a lot of the blotters out, like testers out, the way they used to. But there's certain houses that I like. I love Le Labo. I love Diaz and Durga. I love Frederic Malle is one of my favorites. There's so many different. I like a niche perfumery, so there's so many different places that I really enjoy almost all of the fragrances for different reasons. But I have
Yeah,
hundreds
you have hundreds of fragrances.
in a refrigerator. I have its own. They have their dedicated refrigerator,
So they don't
so that
evaporate.
they don't evaporate and they don't degrade over time. And there's no light in there, so there's they degrade with light and with oxygen exposure and with temperature. So I have all the way back to Ginate and Anais, like
Ginate.
really very. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not like it's not all expensive. I just got like an Calyx from Prescriptives, which is a 90s Clinique fragrance, which is because fragrance is like a time machine where
Yes.
you are transported to the body you were in when you first smelled it, and it's
Yes.
really incredible.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I started wearing the original Marcella Borghese when there was just one. And everybody would stop me and say, "What are you wearing?" I mean, it was something that really went well with my own chemistry, right?
Yeah.
I always say that I love Estee Lauder's Beautiful,
Mhm.
but it smells horrible on me. Like I'll follow you through a store and smell you, but it doesn't smell good on me, which is but it's Borghese. Then they discontinued it. And I think the first time your favorite perfume was discontinued, it's like the first time you lose a pet. It's like a tragedy that's never going to, no one will ever. Anyway, people sometimes bring me bottles of it. Like, oh, I have like this much in a bottle from 1982.
Oh,
I didn't know
that's
about the
great.
refrigerator, but I keep them in a cool tub in a dark place, like in a plastic
Oh,
tub.
yeah.
And
that
I
works
mean,
fine.
it's when you love something and you love the way it smells, the passage of time doesn't necessarily change that. But it's like songs, right? It's like some songs you loved in the 80s, you now go, oh yeah, that's kind of funny. And I remember liking that in the 80s. But some things still sort of light your eternal flame when you listen to them.
Yeah.
I think that perfumes are the same way, right? Some you love them like you're smelling them for the first time. And some sort of, they don't wear well.
Well,
you lose your love.
It brings you back to like I love like an old school patchouli oil from like a head shop.
Sure.
Like that to me is such an evocative smell, and it's so very much like when the 90s was obsessed with the 60s in San Francisco. So there's like so much funny stuff that I remember every time I smell it. But there's like, a great love of fragrance that I've always had. And, there's something to love about all of them.
That's beautiful. Do you, this is a random question, but does relate to smells. Are you a past life person? Do you believe in reincarnation?
I do. So I have had my lives read by Bella, who's passed away, but she was
Oh,
a
okay.
very interesting past life reader, I guess. That she was like really. We did a whole thing, and so she told me this is the first life that I've been a woman,
Okay.
and that I've had. I was a soldier with my father in a past life, and we were battling it out, and we're still battling it out in this life, which I think is really funny.
Yeah, that
Um,
happens, right? Hmm.
yeah, so
Doesn't
I
always
think
get
it's
fixed in one
interesting.
life.
No,
I,
so
I,
you carry it over.
I ask you that because there are sometimes when I smell things. One of those things is Nag Champa incense.
Oh yeah,
When I smell Nag Champa, it's like I can remember delicious things that happened to me while that scent was burning
yeah.
in another
Mm-hmm.
time in another place.
That's
So I
great.
think
Yeah.
sometimes the perfume thing transcends this life and it
Mm-hmm.
goes into the next life.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I can. I love that. I think that Nag Champa is so evocative of
Oh,
many lifetimes.
it's amazing. So, in addition to perfumes and colognes, do you also have essential oils? Because I probably have hundreds and hundreds of those.
I probably do. I mean, I think that they're all sort of like related to like they're all perfumery. Like if that's kind of like more of like the ambers, the musk, the patchoulis, the
Yeah,
muguets, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
right.
for
And do you
sure.
wear those sometimes in addition to or instead of cologne?
Sometimes it's mostly, but it's mostly colognes. It's mostly like perfume, eau de toilette, eau de parfum. It's mostly like the alcohol concentration,
Sure.
but just sort of depends.
That's amazing. See, every time I interview, I learn something fascinating I didn't know before. And I think
Hmm.
that that is completely amazing. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that you have that same thing with smell that I have. That,
Mm.
like, I'll smell something and like, if I smell L'air de Temps, I'm like, oh my God, senior prom. And it's almost like I'm there.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting how fast something can jettison you back that way the minute
Yeah.
that you smell it. Oh,
Yeah.
there's my co-star again. Excuse me. I'm gonna put my
Hi.
co. This is
Who is that?
Cullen. This is
Hi,
Cullen.
Colin. Oh my gosh, those
He
eyes.
just turned a year old. I've had him
He's
since he was 3 days. We
beautiful.
bottle fed him. Isn't he amazing?
Oh,
He's
hi,
he is
boy.
such a pumpkin. Look at that face.
Hi, boy.
He snuggles with me all night
Hi,
long and he
boy.
wakes me up to watch the sunrise. And I'm not a morning person, but now I see a lot of
Oh,
sun. He's fascinated with the sunrise.
oh, that's
But then,
beautiful.
he sees the sunrise, Margaret, but then he goes back to sleep for 10
Uh,
hours. Meanwhile, I'm up. So, yeah, he is the best roommate and the best friend a girl could have. He's a magic healer. Born on Easter Sunday. Isn't that interesting?
oh, I have
He's
a
a
gray boy too. He's not born. He said his birthday is April 25th.
okay.
Um, but he's gray. He will be a year. Oh no, he was a year in April.
Yeah, mine
He
too.
just turned
Hmm.
such a good
Hmm.
boy.
Does he have the blue tint? Is he like a blue?
He is a lycoid, so he's got like kind of he's half fur, half like gray,
Hmm.
and he looks like 1960s werewolf, like on the Batman TV
Oh,
show.
I
Like it's a
love
very like
those. Yeah,
gorgeous, very beautiful boy.
that is a gorgeous face. Mine was blue, and then when he got about 6 months, his bottom turned purple. So he's blue on the
Ooh,
top and purple on the bottom. It's
I
it's
like that.
I think that animals are sort of sent to us to take care of us. I
Hmm.
think we take care of them, but they actually take care of us.
That's right. That's true. They
So
do.
it's back to the acting question, and I meant to ask you that before we started talking about perfumes, which was amazing. Um, have you done a role recently that has kind of changed you in a particular way?
I think that well, just being able to like go and do a character in Reykjavik, my character like in The Flight Attendant, the TV show on HBO Max.
Such a good show.
Um, I love that show, and I love to like play a character who like lives in Reykjavik and does like a bartender and is a tuna like a tuna black like on the black market seller. Like it's very like exotic to me. I was very excited. I got to speak Korean in that role, and I really had such a great time. And um, to me, that was really just a very special kind of thing. And that character did not wear any perfume at all, so that was really fun.
Mm,
That was a different kind of, like, she was very clean, very like soapy, very soap driven
right. Soap and
lesbian,
water. Hmm.
soap and water driven lesbian. So, or maybe a little bit of mint in there. It's a very minty, fresh person.
Right, exactly. Just a lifesaver, and that's it. That's all you
Yes,
get.
yes.
That's fantastic. Was that the first time that you've done something where you spoke Korean?
I have done roles where I've spoken Korean a little bit here and there, but that one I felt like much more convincing, which is really great. And also, it was just great to work in Reykjavik. I'd never been to Iceland before, and so I really enjoyed that experience. So to me, it made me feel really like, wow, I'm like an international actress.
That's wonderful. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. Iceland is wonderful, right? I've heard.
It's beautiful. And at that time of year, it was in December. So it was dark about 20 hours a day, which really is so interesting. It
Yeah.
really gives you a different sort of perspective on the way that life is lived, when there's so much night. And I really appreciated it.
Now, did it enchant you, or did it make you depressed, or a little bit of both?
I think both. I mean, I think it was just also like, when do you wake up, or and you're like, but
Right.
you're going to work, but it's like the dark, and it's so interesting. It's like you don't really have a sense of time passing because it's always night, it feels like, and there's like a little bit of like daylight, but then it goes away, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's like for people that work the third shift, right? I've always done.
Mm,
I did late night radio for a long time when I worked on what was then the Howard Stern station here in LA, and um, I never realized till I got the gig working 3 to 5 a.m. that your schedule switches, right? And then it
mm-hmm.
just becomes you sleep during the day and you're up at night. And I've always thought going to sleep during the day and waking up at night is kind of a trippy thing. Even if you're napping, it's kind of a
Yes,
trippy thing. But when that becomes your
yes.
schedule, everything sort of seems very surreal. Like it's not quite, like nothing's really quite really happening.
It is interesting. So I'm about to go into that next week, and I'm doing a movie where I'm a ghost. So it's not a it's interesting. It's not a horror film, but it's kind of like it's a different kind of film, but it's like night shoots. So I'm sort of starting to
Sure.
prepare and sleep later, and then try to weave into that. Um, and you start to just feel like I'm on it's like the underneath. It is very the upside down. It's very Stranger Things.
Yeah, it is very Stranger Things, and it's when you do it for a long period of time. I think I did that for about a year. Um,
Mm.
I was okay, but I was glad to see it end because it did start to get very. It was many late night trips through the Jack in the Box drive-through, and
Mm-hmm.
I had the insomniac boyfriend that didn't sleep, so nobody was awake. It was just a very kind of strange time. The cats loved it because they're like, "You're
Yeah.
finally on our schedule, and we love you." But
Uh,
it's kind of a strange thing to get used to, and it's I think we don't realize, even for folks that live other places in the country, and I grew up on the East Coast. I know you're a West Coast girl. Um, we're so lucky here to have so much sun in Southern
mm-hmm.
California because I do
Mm-hmm.
believe it picks us up and it brightens our attitude.
It does. I mean, we do definitely photosynthesize, and like my plants really show me like the power of it. The power of the sun is really profound, and I
Yes.
really, I'm very much a day. I'm so diurnal in my life. Like I'm always when I'm home, I'm like all day out in the yard working. I'm building a greenhouse. I'm like out there like with all of the different plants and all the things they need and the animals, and so um, it's a very, to me, the day is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're doing wonderful things like outdoor things. Have you always been so outdoorsy? It seems
I
like
think
your
that
yard and the outside part of your house is so important to you. Are you in? You're
it
still in
is.
that same place? I remember we did an interview. You had just moved
Yes.
there.
Yes. And I'm there, and I just love it. Now I think I'm moving farther into the outdoors. Like I'd never um, worked so much in the outdoors. And I think like now I've worked out, like in the back, I've built out more. area. So the catio, I have 2 catios. I'm building a 3rd catio
Oh,
next to
that's
my
wonderful.
greenhouse. So the
Yeah,
cats have like a way to be out there with me without being in any danger, because it's on a
I
hillside.
love
So
that.
there's a lot of like
Right.
coyotes and stuff
Sure.
that come down during
Hawks.
the drought.
Hmm.
Yeah. I put in
Eagles. I have
a
eagles in my
hawk net.
backyard, and I worry about
Oh,
the little one because I have eagles. But you'll have to tell me how
yeah.
to do that because I want to build one and I have no idea how to do it. But I'd like him to be able to run around while I'm in the pool and just be with me all the time.
It's so good. Well, the hawk net really gives me a lot of security. That's just like where you can put in a net above to make sure the birds of prey don't swoop down and take those little delicious nuggets of animals,
Yes, exactly,
little
right?
delicious
Fly away with
babies.
a Pomeranian. Yeah,
I
exactly. Well,
know.
and the
So
owls
sad.
too, right? The owls that are in
Hmm.
my yard, I mean, they're like almost 2 feet high. Their
They're
little
big, but
bodies.
they're very, they're coming down more because of the drought,
Sure.
because they can find like easier pickings in our yards than they,
Right.
norm, because it's so hard for them. I mean, the environment has been so decimated by the drought that it's really hard for the animals that, are dependent on, just rain and all that, like birds of prey, all the coyotes, and it's sad what we've done to the planet.
Is it hard to have animals when you're on the road?
Well, I have somebody that will like live at my house and take care of my plants and my animals when I'm gone.
That's
So
beautiful.
that is
It's a
so
godsend, right?
amazing,
That's what
and
everybody needs.
it's really it's important to me, that element of the, so that I can feel safe going away, and it's really, yeah, they're so well taken care of. So that's really good.
It's when I'm thinking about, I'm working on getting Cullen to go with me places when I teach.
Hmm.
Obviously, there was no teaching during COVID, but when I go out and teach from a spiritual perspective, where I go places, he loves the car. So I think he'll be great with car trips. He's like up in the window the
Yeah.
whole time, loving
Oh,
it and
that's
not
good.
crying. But I'm going to try to learn to teach him to fly. I've heard it's easy with cats if they're mellow. They can just sit
Mm.
on your lap and just chill. And I'm excited to learn about that. Have you traveled with any of your animals?
Well, Lucia, my dog, is has been here the whole
Oh,
time.
hi. Hi,
She's been
baby.
asleep
She's
right
being good,
here.
unlike my scoundrel.
She's
Yeah.
very good. My gray boy Uju, he is harness trained, and so he'll wear the harness. But I'm like kind of nervous with him because he'll like squirm right out of it
Yeah.
if he stops feeling it. So
Yeah.
we haven't gone on walks yet, but he'll wear it and we'll go around, like in the backyard and stuff. So hopefully, like the other 2 cats are like, we're not going to wear a harness, but they do like our
Right.
baby
Yeah.
carriage. They have like a carriage that has like a little like um, top to it, so I can take them outside. But they have their catio, which they are out in every day that they love. So they don't really care about going on walks that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you taken anybody on a plane? She does. Obviously, she goes
Well,
with you.
Lucia goes on planes everywhere all the time, but I
And
haven't
she's
taken the
good?
cats on a plane yet. She's so good.
Yeah. Her energy feels like she just likes to be with you all the time.
Yeah, she's been with me since she was born. She's like, well, 8 weeks old, and she's been on the road for that whole time. And so she's been amazing.
That's so awesome. How old
Yeah,
is she now?
she's 3.
Okay. Okay. So she's had you home for a long time. Now the fun
Yes,
begins for her.
yes, she loves it.
Now she gets to real. How long is your tour? Where are you going, and how long are you on the
Um,
road?
I'm here in Portland, Oregon until Sunday, and then I'll go back into this movie in LA, and then I'm going to be in Spokane, and then Tacoma, and Washington, D.C. I'll be on the road, I think, until about October.
Wow, that's great. Are
Yeah.
you good with those long stretches? I mean, I know when I've taught you before, you've been on tours that lasted like really long. This is a short one
Well,
in comparison.
it's short, but I mean, I'm going back home in between every date. So it'll be like 3 days out, and then I'll go home for 2 weeks, and then go out for 3 days, and then come home. So it's not a big deal.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think that's great. Have
Yeah.
you gone international since COVID?
I have just gone to Canada to do a movie. I went to Reykjavik, Iceland to do the flight attendant. And I think basically it's like kind of just been, yeah, I think that's as far as I've gone internationally. I was supposed to go to a big tour in Australia and Asia, so hopefully we'll figure out when that'll happen.
That's incredible. It's
Yeah.
were you nervous about going internationally?
No, no. I think because both of them were about production, you're so secure in that. I mean, I think like when you're on a plane, you just don't, and now nobody wears masks on planes, and but I still wear it. I still
Yeah,
wear one, and I
it's
mean,
smart.
I always have, and I definitely am just super careful about it. But when you're going to a production, they're so safe on set.
That's wonderful, and safe in the airports, which I think is good too. Because
Absolutely.
before COVID, I got sick almost every time I flew. Only when I was in an
Right.
airport. There's something about, I don't think it was the plane. I think it was the airport, like waiting in the
Hmm.
airport with all those energies. So this is probably the safest time to be in an airport.
True. I think so.
Are you at your core an introverted person? I mean, was there a part of you? I mean, we all want to work and we all want to be out there and we all love doing things, but was there a part of you that enjoyed not having to be anywhere and being able to be in your home and with your animals and with your plants?
Oh, totally. I mean, I talk to my animals and my plants all day long. Like, I'm in a constant
Yeah, you too.
conversation
Yeah,
with these animals and these plants, and they're just like, just shut up. Like, they're just stop talking to us.
right,
And I
right.
mean, so I guess I'm an introvert, but I'm so like up in my plants' leaves.
Yeah,
Like, I'm in there looking for thrips, looking for spider mites. I'm like in
yeah,
there, like
yeah,
wiping down leaves, turning up the humidity. I'm
yeah,
talking to my cats. I'm talking to my dog all day.
yeah.
So it's really, to me, I think like I'm not an introvert at all because I'm constantly like exchanging conversations with these birds and cleaning up their like bird feeders. Is there's bird flu, so you've got to be very like on top of cleaning the things that birds touch
Sure,
and making sure they don't get sick. And that's
sure.
like, that's with the hummingbirds and that's with all of the other birds, so it's a very like hands-on communicative effort.
Yes,
So I can't imagine
absolutely.
being an introvert, but I guess that's what it is.
But doesn't introvert only apply to people? Because don't, and I love people, but don't
Yeah,
animals fill you up, right? It's people that
right.
drain.
People are drained,
So,
but then I'm also talking to people all day on Zoom or FaceTime
okay.
or TikTok or Instagram, so that's the other thing too, is that I'm so active on social media and just on
So
these
smart.
like platforms that it's like I'm always in contact with people.
Right, for the constant connection. Yeah, for
Yeah,
I know, me too. But it's sometimes it's nice to be doing that from home.
it is. It is
Because
really
I was
nice. I love
always
that.
somewhere and it was like 3, 4 things a day and I would
Hmm.
stack them up and maybe one day I got to be home a little bit. I think this break for me was nice to not have
Yeah,
to always be somewhere else, to be able
that's
to be
true.
in my home. I used to
I
always say
love
I had
that.
2 homes and I was never in either of them. And now
Hmm.
it's nice to be able to just be there. And I'm with you
Yeah.
on the plants. I sort of tell them it's like a beauty parlor thing. When I clip
Hmm.
them, I have orchids and lucky bamboos, and the lucky bamboo sometimes
Ooh,
will get the brown leaves. And so
yeah.
I tell them it's beauty parlor day and I sing to them while I clip because we don't know what they
Nice.
think of the pulling off of the dead leaves. Like we don't know if that's okay with them. So
No,
I
it's
I
really,
sing
yeah,
and
it's important to talk to them. Yeah.
I think that's so wonderful that you do that.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So what is the most fabulous thing coming up that you're excited about?
I'm excited about this movie, which is going to be produced by the same. He is producing it, and it's really cool. He did Fire Island, so
Mm,
Andrew Ahn is producing this film that I'm doing this week, and then so I'm very excited about that. And then going and doing stand up comedy, which to me is really rejuvenating.
yeah, Fire Island's on the top of my list. It looks wonderful. I just saw a preview for it
It's
and I'm
great.
so excited about it. It reminded
Yeah.
me of you being in It's My Party. Did I just date myself?
Oh, that's no, that's a great movie. I love that
It's
movie, and
such a good movie.
it's Roddy McDowell's last film,
I didn't know that. Isn't he
which is
wonderful?
incredible. He was wonderful, and it was incredible to meet him. He was a great guy.
I love the idea of, first of all, any stories that were told about the HIV/AIDS experience, because there weren't enough of them, especially
Right.
at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And also I did not know before that it was a thing to do your celebration of life while you were still alive. I think that's the
It's
most beautiful
great.
idea.
It's great.
Randall
It's a
Kleiser
beautiful
directed that,
film.
right? Because I'm pretty sure
Yes,
I talked to him about that. He's lovely. He's been with me so many times.
he's great.
And
He's a great director.
oh, he's such a love.
Yeah,
And
I love
I
him.
met him because he was doing a play that was sort of
Mm-hmm.
like the male vagina monologues. And he came
Mm.
and did my show the first time to talk about that. And I think it was called the Penis Chronicles. Anyway, if your penis could have a chronicle, there you go. Anyway, he probably was shocked when I brought up It's My Party, but it was a film that when I was sort of coming into adulthood, right,
Mm-hmm.
it moved me because I had friends that were sick, and I had friends that I grew up in Orange County, where it was very conservative, and I had friends that were very ostracized for being gay. But when you see something in a film, and that's why, art is so important, Margaret, and what you do is so important. When you see a story in a film or a television series, or you hear it in a song, or you read it in a book, it validates your own experience, and it makes you realize that there are others feeling like you. And I think the HIV/AIDS crisis, which was another kind of pandemic, was everything was so hush hush, and we didn't talk about it, and they didn't really tell the stories about it. So for people that did, I applaud them, because a lot of people need to know they weren't alone during that time. Not just folks that were affected, but all the people that loved them.
Yes, it's so true. It's trauma that we haven't fully recovered from, and that we still need to heal from.
Absolutely. You are wonderful, my friend. Where can people find you online? Let's do this again. And
Yes.
what is the next thing you've got coming up immediately that people can go and get tickets to?
Well, people can go find out what I'm doing at margaretshow.com. I'm at Margaret Show on Twitter, Margaret_Show on Instagram, and The Margaret Show on TikTok. And I'm going to be touring, doing shows around. I have a couple of things on Netflix right now. I have the Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda comedy special thing happening. Also the Standout special, which is a big LGBTQ comedy special, having every comedian that's queer out there is on. So those are on right now on Netflix. And just kind of like doing comedy, working, and I'm out there.
That's wonderful. Last question about being queer. With all the kids bringing up all the new terminology, right? My spirit daughter's 19, and now there's like 4,500 letters I'm trying to keep up. I'm a queer minister. I got to keep up with them all. How do you identify now?
I'm queer. I am technically, I guess, an old school femme. I'm a bisexual, but I don't think that bisexual actually is the right term, because I think there's not only two genders. So
exactly,
bisexual is not appropriate, but it's my gender and another gender, other genders.
Right. I went from bisexual to pansexual for that exact same reason. Yeah. I still identify as bisexual, but also as pansexual.
Right.
Just because. And that includes like if aliens come and there's a connection, I'm up for it.
I'm
in.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, my friend. The wonderful Margaret Show, everybody. I so appreciate everything that you bring to the world, spiritually and emotionally and creatively. And you're one of my favorite people. And thank you for being here on my new show. Thank you so much. If you missed any links for how to get a hold of Margaret, or you want that website again, you can also find me at sheenametalspiritual.com for learn more about me, learn about my services, learn what I'm doing, about my shows, about this show, about my radio shows, and find me everywhere on social media at Sheena Metal. Until I see you next week, seek peace, live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, work every day to raise your vibration, and know that you are love and you are loved. I'm Sheena Metal, and I'll see you next Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, right here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. It's the Sheena Metal Experience. Thank you. Thanks to KGRA. Thank you, Margaret Cho. We'll see you next week. Thank you.